Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanvat Pranam. Krishna
Thank you
Prabhupada.
for joining me again this evening, Prabhu. Sorry for the delay.
Nice picture in the back.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay. Can we start, Prabhuji?
So I'm just plugging in my headphones here.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Loud and
Okay,
clear.
great, good. Okay, Jai, what were you saying?
Shall we start? Okay.
Sure.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We're in the middle of it.
Yeah, we were at 118, page number 118.
Yeah. Shall I continue this one then?
Let's go.
Okay. All right. I think we're here in meditation, maybe. Did we read that, the above part, or? Yeah. In meditation, Brahma discovered the thousand-headed Mahapurusha, who at first had been invisible to him from his lotus seat. He offered prayers to that Lord and made a special request. My dear Lord, may you come and live on my planet in this very form. Thus, the first Lord of creation became Brahma's constant guest. The Mahapurusha is called Vishuddham, all pure, because even while giving shelter to the material energy, he remains untouched by the faults of matter. He is Sattvam, substantial reality, because he is the all-pervading absolute truth. He is an incarnation of Godhead, but is also called the fountainhead of all other incarnations. This can be said because he is the total support of material nature, and as such, he is almost as complete a manifestation of the Supreme as the master of Vaikuntha, Sri Narayana. In addition, almost all the incarnations of Narayana appear in this world during the rule of the Mahapurusha's appointed servant Brahma. The 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describes Lord Mahapurusha. Bhutara yada panchabhir atmashrishtai puram virajam virachaya tasmin samshena vishta purushabhidanam avapanarayana adideva. When the primeval Lord Narayana created his universal body out of the 5 elements produced from himself, and then entered within that universal body by his own plenary portion, he thus became known as the Purusha. Yatkaya esha bhuvanatraya sanivesho yasyandriyaisthanubritam ubayandriyani jnanam svata balamoja iha satvadibhi stitiladayodbhava adi karta. Elaborately arranged within his body are the 3 planetary systems of this universe. His transcendental senses generate the knowledge acquiring and active senses of all embodied beings. His consciousness generates conditioned knowledge, and his powerful breathing produces the bodily strength, sensory power, and conditioned activities of the embodied souls. He is the prime mover through the agency of the material modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and thus the universe is created, maintained, and annihilated. The Mahapurusha produced the total body of the universe and entered it as his pastime, but he did not do so for his own enjoyment. Rather, the enjoyer of the universal body is the most pious of conditioned beings, Brahma. The Lord in his creative feature is called Purusha because he lays down Shaite within the city, Pur of the universal shell. His beautiful body accommodates all the 3 worlds, and his pastimes consist of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. As Indra is stating, Lord Mahapurusha on Brahmaloka consumes the offerings made in sacrifice, which resemble a constantly flowing river, because on Brahmaloka so many sacrifices are always being performed. Thanks to the Lord's being satisfied by these offerings, the inhabitants of Brahma's planet are perpetually blissful. It is true that Lord Mahapurusha is sometimes absent when he merges into Sri Krishna to join him in Mathura Dham on earth, and the ecstasy of Brahmaloka is accordingly interrupted, but time on Brahmaloka is so expansive that the duration of Sri Krishna's descent is barely noticeable. In effect, on Brahmaloka, Lord Mahapurusha is seen constantly. I'll read maybe a few more, I guess. Text 35. I could give you thousands of other reasons why Brahma is the real object of Sri Krishna's mercy. What more needs to be said? He is in fact Krishna himself. 36. You know this since it is proclaimed in both Shruti and Smriti. You must also be familiar, my lord, with other aspects of Brahma's greatness and the greatness of the residents of his planet. Commentary. Many scriptures, including Srimad Bhagavatam, teach that Lord Brahma is an empowered incarnation of Vishnu. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Aham Brahma Chasarvascha Jagata Karanam Param Atmeshvara Upadrashta Swayam Dig Avisheshanaha Atmamayam Samavishya Soham Gunamayim Dvija Srijan Lakshan Haran Vishvam Dadre Samyam Kriyo Chitam. Lord Vishnu said, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and I are the supreme cause of the material manifestation. I am the supersoul, the self-sufficient witness. But impersonally, there is no difference between Brahma, Lord Shiva, and me, my dear Daksha Dvija. I am the original personality of Godhead, but in order to create, maintain, and annihilate this cosmic manifestation, I act through my material energy. And according to the different grades of activity, my representations are differently named. Bhagavatam 4:750 through 51. Trayanam ekabhavanam yona pashyati vaibhidam sarvabhutatmanam brahman sa shantim adhigacchati. One who does not consider Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, or the living entities in general to be separate from the Supreme, and who knows Brahman, actually realizes peace. Others do not. Bhagavatam 4:754. 37. Sri Parikshit said, having heard these words from Indra, godly Narada replied, well, sir, well said, sir, well said, and hastily went to Brahma's planet. Would you like to read?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Text 38. There, Narada first heard from a distance the huge sound of the many great sacrifices performed unceasingly and with great devotion by the sages on Brahmaloka. Vedic sacrifices may be performed simply or elaborately according to the resources and ambitions of the performers. More than any other Brahmanas in the universe, the residents of Brahma's planet are willing and able to carry out the longest, most complex sacrifices. Thus, Narada's first impression of Brahmaloka from the din of the many sacrifices being performed was of a very busy place. Text 39. He then beheld among the sages the Supreme Lord in his Mahapurush form, looking very much satisfied, decorated with crowns of matted locks. The Lord in his thousand-headed form, the personification of sacrifice, had appeared there with his consort just to accept the offerings and delight his worshippers. Commentary. Lord Mahapurusha is the originator of sacrifices and is their presiding deity. As described in the Purusha Shukta of the Rig Veda, at the beginning of creation, the first sacrifice in the universe was performed, and for this sacrifice, Lord Mahapurusha provided the sacrificial ingredients from his own body. The Lord reveals himself in this form on Brahmaloka, not simply to take his offerings, but to please his worshippers. He enjoys personally distributing the results of sacrifice. 41. To enliven lotus-born Brahma, the Lord consumed all the items offered him, placing them in his thousand mouths with his thousand hands. After awarding the performers of the sacrifices the benedictions they desired, Lord Mahapurusha went to his sleeping quarters. As the goddess Lakshmi massaged his feet, he entered his pastime of sleep. Commentary. To relieve the worshippers of any doubt as to whether he was enjoying the oblations, Lord Mahapurusha ate the oblations with relish and without hesitation, as long as the offerings continued. When the offerings were finished, the Lord blessed the sages with benedictions, fulfilling their desires, such as the desire that they always be able to perform similar sacrifices. Lord Mahapurusha and the goddess of fortune then went to their private quarters to rest. At this time, he was no longer visible to the residents of Brahmaloka. The two principal pastimes of Lord Mahapurusha in Brahmaloka His accepting sacrifices and his sleeping are described by the Vaishapayana Rishi in the Mahabharata. At the end of the account of the killing of Alanemi, Vaishampayana says, Sadadarsha Maheshva Ajyair Ijyamanam Maharshibhi Bhagam Yagniyam Ashananam Swamdeham Param Stitam. We saw the Lord in yet another of his forms, consuming his share of the oblations of ghee offered in sacrifices by great sages. Satatra pravishan jata bharam samudvahan saharsra shirsho bhutva sayanayopachakrame. The thousand-headed Lord, his heads covered with matted locks, entered that room and lay down to sleep. According to Sri Shukdev Goswami's account, at the beginning of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, at the end of Dwapar Yuga, Lord Brahma and the other demigods, on the request of the earth personified, approached Lord Vishnu on Shvetadvipa from the shore of the Milk Ocean. One might ask why they needed to travel to Shvetadvipa if Lord Vishnu is always present in Brahma's own domain. Although this journey was strictly speaking unnecessary, during some days of Brahma, the pastimes of entreating Lord Krishna to descend unfolds in this way. During other days of Brahma, such as the one described in Sri Hari Vamsha, Lord Vishnu is approached on Brahma Loka itself. Srila Sanatana Goswami suggests that Brahma and the others may have gone to Shvetadvipa because they felt reluctant to disturb Lord Mahapurusha's privacy while he was enjoying his sleep. Or else, Brahma may have calculated that if Lord Mahapurusha were to descend to earth at his request, Brahmaloka would be bereft of his presence for the duration of the avatar. It would be better, therefore, to go to the milk ocean and ask Lord Vishnu there to become the avatar. In any case, when Sri Krishna descends, all the expansions of the Godhead appear within him, including Lord Mahapurusha and the Lord of Shvetadvip. Thus, to say that Krishna descends through one form of Vishnu or another makes little difference. Krishna alone is the ultimate source of all avatars. At the Lord's request, Brahma then instructed his sons to continue the sacrifices while he went to his own royal court to deliberate on the management of the universe. Just before Lord Purusha went to his quarters to rest, he advised Brahma to turn the sacrifices over to his sons. This deputing of Brahma's sons as authorities in Vedic sacrifice confirms the Supreme Person's eternal instructions recorded in the Vedas. The Vedas describe that Brahma is the first Vedic priest, followed by his sons who teach the methods of sacrifice thereafter to the people of the universe. As Brahma sat comfortably on his universal throne, absorbed in hearing and reciting the glories of his Lord, tears flowed from his 8 eyes. Surrounding Lord Brahma in attendance were the personified powers of universal rulership. Narada came close, offered respects to his father by falling to the ground like a stick, and then spoke. Commentary. While the Supreme Lord was present, Narada did not speak his mind. Either he thought that speaking would be improper, or he found no opportunity to say anything until after the Lord had left. Only then could Narada offer full obeisances to his father, because one is generally forbidden to bow down to anyone else in the presence of the Supreme Lord. Since Brahma is both Narada's father and his spiritual master, Narada may have bowed only his head to Brahma in front of Lord Vishnu, but bowed down with his whole body after Lord Vishnu had left. Brahma's attention was now fixed on hearing about the great qualities of Lord Vishnu, such as his exceptional kindness to his devotees. Text 46. Sri Narada said, "It is you who have truly received the mercy of Lord Hari. After all, you are the master of all masters of the living beings of the universe, the grandfather of all the worlds. You alone create, maintain, and devour the 14 worlds. You forever rule the universe. and you are known as the self-born. Present in person in your assembly are the Vedas, Puranas, and other scriptures, the revealers of truth, who were born from your four maps. I think I forgot the commentary of 47.
Yeah,
Commentary.
that's okay. Yeah. Yep,
I'll
I
read,
noticed that. Go ahead.
I'll read it now. Yeah. Commentary. In text 46 through 52, Narada enumerates the reasons for Brahma's being the most favored devotee of the Lord. Brahma's reign is not limited like those of Indra and other demigods. He maintains his position uninterrupted by the many partial annihilations that affect the lower regions of the universe. Now, commentary of 48. Although the four Vedas are eternal, they enter the material world periodically at the beginning of each day of Brahma, when one Veda appears from each of his four mouths. Brahma, therefore, is not the author of the Vedas, which include all spiritual and material knowledge, but he is Adi Kavi, the first authority on Vedic knowledge in this universe. 49. Your world can be attained only by saintly persons who faultlessly perform their prescribed social duties, free from pride and other vices, for 100 lifetimes. Commentary. Brahma's character is exalted and his planet glorious. Saintly persons who follow prescribed duties for 100 lives without error and without falling prey to pride, deceit, and other causes of deviation become eligible for birth on Brahmaloka. As Lord Shiva says in his instructions to the Prachetas, Swadharmanishta Satajanma Puman Virinchatam iti. A person who executes his occupational duty properly for 100 births becomes qualified to occupy the post of Brahma. Bhagavatam 4:24-29. The position of Brahma earned by pious workers normally consists in being an associate of Brahma. Receiving a universe of one's own to rule is much more rare. Text 50. Within the universe there is no higher world than yours. Even Lord Narayan's Vaikuntha planet is found inside your world. On Brahmaloka, Lord Narayan resides always in his manifest form as a lotus-naveled Mahapurush. He eats his shares of sacrifice and grants the sacrificial results. Although in the distant past you made many attempts and were unable to find him, after performing austerities you finally saw him just for a moment in your heart. Commentary. The Supreme Lord, from whose navel Brahma was born, is extremely difficult to find. Brahma's having obtained the virtually unobtainable is evidence that the Lord has special regard for him. Lord Brahma, to search for his origin, first entered the stem of his lotus seed. For a long time he traced the stem back, searching for its source, even in the ocean that fills the lower regions of the universe, but he could find nothing. What to speak of identifying his Lord and understanding him? Brahma failed even to locate him physically. Lord Vishnu then graced him with a simple spoken instruction: do penance. Brahma obeyed, and after long meditation received a short vision of the Lord. This history is described in detail in the second and third cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. Would you like to read, Prabhu?
Sure. Therefore, you are surely the dearmost devotee of Lord Krishna. Indeed, you are none other than Krishna himself, appearing in various bodies for your pastimes. Commentary. Lord Brahma might object to being called Krishna himself. He might argue, quote, the Lord is sitting right here in his Mahapurusha form with thousands of heads. Beside this form, he has countless others, but I am someone different, a finite living being with only 4 heads. End quote. Narada therefore says that among the Lord's infinite pastime appearances are the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of the material creation, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, each of them non-different from the original supreme person. 54. Sri Parikshit said, thus loudly praising Brahma, bowing before him with great devotion again and again, the sage Narada expansively sang Brahma's glories as he had heard them from Indra and seen them with his own eyes. Commentary. Indra had told Narada, quote, Brahma is the very son of Lord Vishnu, husband of Lakshmi, end quote, and had mentioned several of Brahma's glories. Narada knew from scriptures other glories of Brahma and now was seeing even more. 55. Merely by hearing what Narada said, Brahma grew disturbed. He anxiously covered his 8 ears, and said over and over again, I am just a servant. With some effort, the four-headed Brahma checked the anger stirred within him by hearing what no one should hear, and rebuked his son Narada. Commentary. Having to work with the material mode of passion, Lord Brahma is sometimes briefly affected by anger. Here, because his son praised him inaptly as the independent Supreme Lord, he almost lost his temper. 57. Sri Brahma said, I am not the Supreme Lord Krishna. On what authority and by what logic do you say this? Haven't I constantly taught you about this since you were a little boy? Commentary. In Brahminical culture, one should not make any claim unless it is upheld by the Vedas or their authorized supplements. Thus, Brahma rightly demands the scriptural evidence for Narada's statements. As the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam recounts, Brahma had carefully educated his son in spiritual science. 58. His personal energy, Mahamaya, stands within his sight like a maidservant. It is she who deploys her material modes to create, maintain, and demolish this world. Commentary. By the power of Rajaguna, Mahamaya creates, by Sattva-guna she maintains, and by Tamoguna she destroys. These are her potencies, and she is their controller. 59. All of us are subject to her and bewildered, so you should not think me the recipient of even a trace of Krishna's mercy. Commentary. All of us means Brahma, his sons, and their descendants, or in other words, everyone born into material existence. Quote, you are also one of us bewildered souls, Brahma here implies, and so you are speaking erroneously like this. 60 to 62. By the power of Krishna's Maya, I am always deluded by various conceits. I think myself the controller, grandfather, and spiritual master of the universe. Proud of my birth from Krishna's lotus navel, I think myself a great ascetic, his great worshipper. I am overwhelmed by the countless duties of universal management. Worrying about the imminent destruction of my planet, I live in terror of the all-devouring end of time. All I want for myself is liberation. Commentary. According to Brahma, being the Lord of all creatures in the universe is not a sign of Krishna's favor. On the contrary, it is a cause of great trouble. His worldly responsibilities, he says, fill him with false pride and expose him to all kinds of anxiety. Brahma is bewildered by various kinds of abhiman, false identity. He thinks himself everyone's progenitor, protector, and regulator, as if he alone were the beginning, middle, and end of creation. He sees himself as the first teacher of the students and of all other scriptures. First teacher of the Vedas and all other scriptures, and the highest authority who appoints the demigods to their posts. He may be called self-born, but that name is not literally true, since he was born from a lotus growing from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. That the personified Vedas and other principal scriptures attend Lord Brahma in his court does not prove that the Supreme Lord favors him. Rather, the presence of the revealed scriptures means that Brahma is all the more bound to follow their dictates in managing the universe. These scriptures may praise Brahmaloka, but Brahma is acutely aware that his planet is soon to be destroyed. He may long outlive the demigods headed by Indra, but he still has to die, and anticipating the end of the world and the end of his life keeps Brahma always afraid. Would you like to read?
63. For this purpose of liberation, I engage others in worshipping the Lord and also worship him myself. Since he is the Lord of the universe, is there any place where he does not reside? In effect, Brahma is saying, I worship the Lord for liberation, not from the sheer joy of devotional service. So you should not regard this worship as a sign of my being favored. You said that God resides on my planet. That is nothing exceptional, since the Lord of the universe lives inside and outside everything. 64. He accepts sacrificial offerings from me only to promote the Vedic teachings and show special favor to the sacrifices themselves, which are dear to him because he is their original creator. Commentary. The Vedic sacrifices are dear to the Supreme Lord because they benefit all living beings, engaging them indirectly in his service. The Lord, after all, is forever eager to have the wayward souls come back to him. In Brahma's opinion, the Lord reciprocates with him because of the Lord's concern for the welfare of the universe, not because he is particularly interested in Brahma or the other sacrifices. Brahma thus expresses the limited thoughts of ritualistic religion, placing God at a formal distance and ignoring the Lord's constant compassion for every living being. In fact, the Supreme Lord cares in an intimate, personal way for all living beings, including those who have chosen to forget Him since time immemorial. 65. Just consider this, my dear professor of logic. He loves only devotion. He shows his mercy only to his devotees, never to non devotees. This statement by Brahma is confirmed by many statements spoken by the Supreme Lord. For example, Bhaktya ham ekaya grahya. I can be realized only by devotional service. Bhagavatam 11:14-21. 66. Forget about my having any devotion for him. I would be happy if only it were true that I never offend him. I cannot expect him to tolerate my offenses as he does Lord Shiva's. 67. With benedictions obtained from me, the wicked Hiranyakashipu became the tormentor of all the worlds, dedicated to violence against Vaishnavas. 68 to 69. After the Lord, in his form as Nrsingadev, destroyed Hiranyakashipu, I and my entourage stood fearful at a distance, trying to praise the Lord with skillful prayers, but he would not even honor us with a sidelong glance. Yet, when Prahlad was inaugurated king, the Lord at once became pacified. Then I slowly approached him, and he angrily ordered me, quote, "You should not give such benedictions to demons, O lotus born." 71. Nonetheless, I kept on giving benedictions to wicked demons like Ravana, whose tongue can even mention the sins Ravana has done. Commentary in text 67 through 78, Brahma elaborates on the offenses against the Lord for which he considered himself responsible. Having mentioned the killing of Hiranyakashipu, Brahma goes on to tell of Lord Nrsinga's dissatisfaction at Brahma's mistakes. The promise of invincibility Brahma gave Hiranyakashipu resulted in offenses to the Lord's pure devotee. The Lord takes such offenses more seriously than offenses directly against himself. After Lord Nrsinga killed Hiranyakashipu, Brahma and other demigods tried to pacify the Lord. They thought they might deserve the Lord's kind glance and perhaps blessings expressed by the touch of his feet on their heads. But for some time, Lord Nrsinga remained so furious that he would not even recognize the demigod standing before him. Thus he expressed his displeasure. When Brahma finally got the courage to approach him, the Lord also expressed displeasure by his words. Finally, only by the prayers of Prahlad was Lord Nrsingadev calmed. Seeing this, Brahma thought, now that he is pacified, he will be ready to respond gracefully to my prayers. Lord Nrsinga, however, was still annoyed enough to rebuke Brahma. His original words are recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:10:30. Maivamavibhyo suranam te padye padma sambhava varapura nisharganam ahinam amritam yatha. My dear Lord Brahma, O great Lord, born from the lotus, just as it is dangerous to feed milk to a snake, so it is dangerous to give benedictions to demons, who are by nature ferocious and jealous. I warned you not to give such benedictions to any demon again. Lord Nrsinga was not going to excuse Brahma for his bad judgment just because Brahma had been born from the Lord's own navel. After all, Brahma was still a finite jiva with a tendency to make mistakes. The Lord's judgment was later confirmed when Brahma gave Ravana supernatural power. Misusing that power, Ravana disturbed the world, offended Lord Ramachandra by kidnapping Mother Sita, and committed other audacious crimes. 72. Remember the offenses committed against the Lord by Indra and the other demigods I appointed. The excessive pride of those demigods constantly perverts their discrimination. Indra sent rain to retaliate for the Govardhan sacrifice, sometimes fought against the Lord, and committed other offenses. The Lord of the waters, Varuna, offended the Lord by kidnapping Nanda Maharaj, by failing to return the cows belonging to Barna, and so on. Yamraj made mistakes like allowing the wrongful death of the son of the Lord's teacher, and Kuvera was responsible for the wicked misdeeds of Shankachuda and others. In the lower planetary systems, like the Daityas, who always attack Lord Vishnu's devotees, and also living there are the serpent friends of Kaliya, who by nature are contaminated by anger. Commentary. Indra had mentioned to Narada that Brahma appoints the rulers of the planets. Brahma now turns his praise around, showing that the same fact is a reason for him to feel ashamed. These universal rulers have committed numerous offenses against Lord Vishnu, and Brahma considers the offenses of his subordinates his own. Narada is familiar with these incidents, but Brahma is asking him to remember them for a moment. Indra offended Krishna by trying to destroy Vrindavan in the wake of the Govardhan Puja, and he fought Krishna when Krishna took away a Parichata flower tree for his queen Satyabhama. At various times, Indra dared criticize Krishna, not fully respecting his supremacy. Although, in an earlier conversation with Narada, Indra mentioned some of his own offenses, his memory of other offenses he had committed was covered by subtle pride. Varuna arrested Krishna's father, Nanda, for bathing in the Yamuna at a forbidden time, during the last minutes of the night at the beginning of the Dwadashi, and Varuna ordered Nanda Maharaj bound and brought to his court. Varuna is also known to have failed to return some cows that belonged to Barna, and to have sometimes spoken duplicitously. duplicitously. Yama, the lord of death, took away the young son of Krishna's teacher Sandipani Muni, allowing the demon Panchajana to kill the Brahmana boy. Sri Vishnu Puran 5:21-30 and other scriptures furthermore describe Yamaraj becoming an opponent of Krishna in battle. Kubera's servant Shankachuda tried to kidnap Krishna's cowherd girlfriends, and as described in the Puranas, the two sons of Kubera, cursed by Narada to become trees, were implicated in collaborating with King Kamsa. Besides the demigods Indra, Varuna, Yama, and Kuvera, who are the superintendents of the four principal directions, many minor demigods are also guilty of offenses against Krishna, and the subterranean serpents come in for blame simply because they are blood relatives of Kaliya. 76. And recently, by my magic, I stole the calves and young friends the Lord was watching after in Vrindavan. I took them all away while the boys were having lunch. Commentary. In Brahma's opinion, this last offense, his own, was worse than all the transgressions committed by the other demigods. While Krishna was enjoying lunch with his friends in the sacred forest of Vrindavan, Brahma disturbed him by stealing the cows and boys Krishna was personally protecting. Restoring to mystic power, Brahma removed them from Krishna's presence and hid them in a cave. 77. I then saw some most amazing wonders and became frightened. Offering prayers and bowing down to the Lord, I thought, quote, I am so arrogant. But now, in his pastime as a cowherd boy, he has tricked me. Commentary. Krishna, Krishna arranged for Brahma to see that he had continued playing with the boys and calves for a whole year, even after Brahma had supposedly kidnapped them. Brahma saw each of the boys and calves assume the spiritual form of the personality of Godhead, each holding within himself all the universes. Suddenly realizing the seriousness of his offense, Brahma became afraid. He thought himself arrogant because he had now dared approach with prayers and obeisances the Lord he had repeatedly offended. Brahma focused his mind on Lord Krishna standing before him as a small cowherd boy holding a handful of chipped rice and yogurt from someone else's plate, and Brahma was astounded. The Lord had defeated him, and now the Lord was not even responding to his prayers. 70th. Simply by the spontaneous glance of favor upon me from his lotus face, I became joyful. I realized how fortunate I was to have visited the land of Raja, which is so dear to him. Commentary. Narada might wonder how everything seemed all right with Brahma soon after Brahma's blunder and embarrassment. How was he now sitting happily in his own abode? One answer Brahma gives here is that he at once felt the purpose of his life fulfilled just by seeing the Lord's ever smiling face. And he had also received the rare opportunity to stay a short time in Sri Vrajadham. Vraja is the most sacred land, and Krishna is the only shelter of its residents. Thus Brahma felt that after having mistreated the calves and cowherd boys of Vraja, it was best for him to leave quickly and go back to Brahmaloka.
79. Fearing that I would commit more offenses if I stayed there too long, I then went away. What else need I tell you about my ill fortune? Commentary. Vrajabhumi is the place of the Supreme Lord's intimate dealings with his dearmost devotees. Materialistic persons should not stay there longer than a few days, long enough to gain transcendental benefit from contact with the holy Dham, but not long enough to become offensive toward the Dham and its residents. Brahma, thinking herself one of the ordinary conditioned souls, had returned quickly to his own place. Now he had nothing more to say about his own shortcomings, since he felt he had adequately refuted each point of Narada's praise. 80. In fact, in this universe, I see no object of Lord Vishnu's mercy equal to Mahadev Shiva. He is famous as the dear friend of the Lord. Commentary. Other than Lord Shiva, everyone in every part of the universe, upper, middle, and lower, is imperfect. Although certain persons like Prahlad will be described later in this book as greater devotees of Krishna than Lord Shiva, strictly speaking, they are not residents of the material world. Because the character of a devotee like Prahlad is untouched by material contamination, anywhere he resides is spiritual. Thus, Lord Brahma is not speaking inconsistently. Because Brahma and Shiva are both guna avatars, the Supreme Lord deals with them similarly. Brahma can understand Lord Krishna's mercy on Lord Shiva because it resembles something within his own experience. But the exceptional mercy obtained by a person much greater than himself is beyond Brahma's ability to understand. Only things in some way similar can be meaningfully compared as greater and lesser. For example, the weight of a blade of grass is so extremely different from that of a mountain that one cannot sensibly compare them. Thus, when goddess Ganga, as we are told in Sri Harivamsha, declares the ocean more fortunate than herself, she does not compare herself with Brahma, who is much more fortunate still. In the same way, Brahma here compares himself with Lord Shiva and not with even greater Vaishnavas like Prahlad, what to speak of the cowherd boys and other inhabitants of Braja. That's an interesting explanation for why it's an incremental, uh,
Yeah.
step by step. Text 81. Lord Shiva is always intoxicated by the taste found at Sri Krishna's lotus feet. He therefore has no interest in any of the normal goals of life, even up to rulership of the universe and the sense enjoyment such rulership provides. 82. As if ridiculing materialists like me who are simply addicted to sense enjoyment, he goes around naked, wearing garlands of dustura, arka, and bones, and smeared all over with ashes. 83. His matted locks scattered about, he moves around aimlessly like a madman, yet he is unable to conceal his glories. With joy, he carries on his head the Ganga, born from the water that washed Krishna's lotus feet. When he dances, he destroys the universe. Commentary. Lord Shiva rejects with disdain the ambitions of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. He has no desire to be an independent controller and enjoyer. The satisfaction others derive from worldly pursuits and the achievement of supremacy does not attract him. He identifies himself fully as a servant of Krishna. In Lord Shiva's view, demigods like Brahma and Indra are addicted to sense enjoyment. Their celestial garlands, ornaments, and perfumes last only a short time, and so leave them dissatisfied. Better than the decorations of the demigods are his own garlands made of bones and intoxicating weeds, which at least cause no disappointment when they decay. These strange ornaments, Lord Shiva thinks, are no less substantial than Indra's and Brahma's divine garlands. But these are only Lord Shiva's external decorations. His real ornament and his real enjoyment are found in the mercy of Sri Krishna. Humbly thinking himself bereft of that mercy, he feels fit to wear weeds and bones. With such ideas in mind, the great Lord Shiva conducts himself in his own peculiar way. 84. By Krishna's grace, Lord Shiva and his wife are able to award liberation to candidates like me who eagerly want it. Commentary. Principal demigods like Indra and Brahma enjoy high posts in the administration of the universe, but after carrying out extensive duties for many millions of years, they may tire of this burden. Thus, liberation from material existence begins to look more and more attractive to them. In the midst of all the pomp and luxury of heavenly rulership, many demigods quietly harbor the desire for liberation. Here, Lord Brahma groups himself with lesser demigods, even though he is an empowered incarnation of the personality of Godhead. Speaking from humility, he describes himself as just another appointed administrator with selfish motives of his own. 85. Indeed, everyone who lives on Lord Shiva's planet is liberated. By his mercy, so many persons have become liberated souls and even pure devotees of Krishna. Commentary. Lord Shiva is Nitya Mukta, eternally liberated, and his devotees are liberated also. Many other fortunate souls living on lower planets like the earth have also been blessed by his mercy and instructions, which have given these souls the strength to advance spiritually in various ways. 86. To consider Lord Shiva different from Krishna is a serious spiritual deviation. The personality of Godhead tolerates offenses against himself, but not against Lord Shiva. Commentary. Lord Shiva is described as a recipient of Lord Vishnu's mercy, but this does not mean that the two lords are different from one another in the same way that Lord Vishnu differs from the Jivas. Padma Purana includes the Nam Aparada Bhanjana Stotra, a list of 10 offenses against chanting Lord Vishnu's names. Therein it is said, Shivasya Shri Vishnurja Iha Gunanamadi Sakalam Dhiya Binam Pashet Sakalu Harinama Hita Karaha. One who sees differences between any of Lord Shiva's qualities and names and those of Sri Vishnu is an antagonist to Harinam. Padma Purana Brahmakanda 25:15. Lord Shiva cannot tolerate offenses against Lord Vishnu cannot tolerate offenses against Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is the greatest of Lord Vishnu's empowered incarnations. Lord Shiva is especially empowered to distribute in the material world the elevated tastes of pure devotional service. 87 through 88. When Maya, the master of Tripura, grew intoxicated with pride by Lord Shiva's benediction and placed Lord Shiva in danger, and when Lord Shiva was troubled by other demons like Vrikasura, the Supreme Lord saved him and encouraged him with nectarian words. And sometimes to broadcast Lord Shiva's glories, Lord Krishna takes the role of his subordinate and worships him with intimate devotion. Commentary. Lord Shiva once empowered Maya Danava to construct for the demons of Tripura a well of heavenly nectar that could revive the dead. On another occasion, Lord Shiva granted Vrikasura the power to crack anyone's head into pieces by merely touching it with his hand. Lord Shiva also granted great strength and influence to demons like Ravana. Each of these demons became intoxicated with his acquired perfections and created trouble for Lord Shiva. Maya made it difficult to destroy Tripura. Vrika tried to test his power on Lord Shiva's head, compelling Lord Shiva to flee for his life. And Ravana moved Kailash mountain from its base. Each time Lord Krishna came to save Lord Shiva, he drank up Mayadanava's well, beguiled Vrika into touching his own head, and as Sri Ramchandra killed Ravana with bow and arrows. These famous episodes, briefly alluded to here, are elaborately described in various scriptures, including Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahma points out that although Lord Nrsimhadev had rebuked him, the Supreme Lord did not treat Lord Shiva's offenses the same way. Instead, responding to Lord Shiva's remorse, the Lord generally tried to encourage him, saying, for example, about Vrikasura, Ho Deva Mahadeva Papo Yamasvena Papmana Hata Konu Mahatsvisha Janturvai Kritikil Bishaha Kshemi Syat Kim Uvishveshe Kritagasko Jagadgurau. Just see, O Mahadev, my Lord, how this wicked man has been killed by his own sinful reactions. Indeed, what living being can hope for good fortune if he offends exalted saints? What to speak of offending the Lord and spiritual master of the universe? The Supreme Lord in his incarnation as Parashuram worships Lord Shiva in loving reciprocation by advertising Lord Shiva's greatness. Text 89 through 90. Although Krishna was personally present at the churning of nectar from the milk ocean, he and the rulers of the universe chose to worship Lord Shiva, the life and soul of Gauri. Lord Shiva collected and drank the terrible poison which thereafter became his ornament. He was then ceremonially bathed in the presence of everyone assembled and was glorified with floods of praise. Commentary. In the presence of Lord Krishna, the demigods had no need to fear destruction from the halahala poison churned from the ocean of milk. Krishna chose, however, not to counteract the poison himself, but to give Lord Shiva an opportunity to show his prowess. The Supreme Lord and the Prajapatis honored Lord Shiva with Vedic hymns and other prayers, entreating him to save them. Their request was so strongly presented that Lord Shiva took the risk of drinking all the poison, ignoring the objections of his dear wife Gauri. The demigods praised Lord Shiva for a feat even Lord Vishnu had not performed. From then on, the blue marks made on Lord Shiva's throat by the poison became renowned as his unique ornament. Text 91. The Puranas sing of Lord Hari's compassion toward Lord Hara. You surely know all this and more, O thoughtful sage. To recall these glories, you need only exercise your memory. Commentary. Lord Hari's attitude toward Lord Hara is something like a father's affection for his son. Narada can remember other instances of Lord Shiva's displaying his glories. For example, when he blessed Lord Krishna to have an excellent son, Samba. Maybe we'll read just a few more. Is that all right?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay. Sri Parikshit said, "O dear mother, affectionate protector of your son, Narada bowed down to his spiritual master, Lord Brahma. And when Brahma saw his son Narada eager to set off for Kailash, Brahma then told him something more." Commentary. A father should be honored as a kind of spiritual master, all the more if he has given essential instructions in Krishna consciousness. Brahma is the father of all fathers among the living entities, and he personally taught his youngest son, Narada, the science of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because Brahma is omniscient within the material universe, he knew that Narada wanted to go to Mount Kailash, Lord Shiva's abode in the universe. Noticing that Narada was glancing down from Brahmaloka in the direction of Kailash, Brahma decided to suggest a better idea. Sri Brahma said, text 93, Kuvera once earned the gratitude of Lord Shiva by devotedly worshipping him. From then on, within this universe, Lord Shiva has submitted to Kuvera's authority on Kuvera's Mount Kailash. 94, text 94. Lord Shiva, the husband of Uma, lives there as the guardian of Kuvera's side of the heavenly sphere. Accompanied by suitable attendants, he shows but a small fraction of his opulence. Commentary. Kuvera, the appointed treasurer of heaven, rules the northeast. Pleased with Kuvera, Lord Shiva, despite his own elevated position, takes up menial service as Kuvera's guard. Lord Shiva's wife, Uma, and several of his associates and servants accompany Lord Shiva in Kailash, which, compared with his eternal abode outside the universe, is modest in opulence and entourage. Brahma implies, quote, if you go see Lord Shiva on Kuvera's Kailash, you will not be able to fully understand how much greater Lord Shiva is than I. Text 95. Just as the personality of Godhead Krishna, brought under control by the devotion of servants like me, resides on my planet, and in heaven and elsewhere, Lord Shiva lives in Kailash displaying suitable pastimes. Commentary. The Supreme Lord reciprocates with his best devotees in this world, Brahma, Kashyapa, and so on, by living with them personally in heaven, below heaven, and on the earth, above heaven, on Maharloka, and elsewhere. In each incarnation, the Lord appears with suitable pastimes, paraphernalia, family, and friends. Let's see. Maybe we can stop there for tonight. Is that all right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh, we're just about done with the chapter. Let's just finish the chapter. You want to read the rest of it, Prabhu? From 96? We just have a couple more texts. Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Or did you want to discuss something?
No, we can complete the chapter.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Now let me tell you the opinion of the Vayu Purana. The abode of Sri Mahadev lies outside the seven coverings of the universe. Commentary. The material universe is enclosed within seven concentric shells made of earth and the other basic elements. Outside them all lies the imperishable realm of Lord Shiva, in contrast to all the planets inside the shells, planets that are temporary products of material nature. This abode of Lord Shiva's is not a creation of Maya. In Shivaloka, there is no unhappiness. That world is attained by the best of Lord Shiva's devotees, the ones who understand him to be non-different from Sri Krishna, not the Shaivites who are karmis or jnanis who worship Lord Shiva as an independent supreme controller. 97 to 98. Eternal and full of happiness, that abode is absolutely real. It can be attained by the best of Lord Shiva's servants. There, Lord Shiva, served by the most elegant regalia, reveals himself in his full splendor, surrounded by companions who share opulence and beauty equal to his. As his personal deity, he worships Lord Shankarshan, non different from himself. What amazing wonders does Lord Shiva in this manifestation not display? In his original abode, Lord Shiva displays his full opulence, including ever existing palaces and airplanes, and his unequaled personal assets of religion, wealth, sense enjoyment, liberation, and devotion to the Supreme Lord. His emblems of rulership, such as his jewelry, Chavara fans, and royal umbrella, surpass those of Brahma and other demigods. On Shivaloka, Lord Shiva always worships the personality of Godhead in his form as Sri Shankarshan, who has thousands of serpent hoods. Both Lord Shankarshan and his expansion Lord Shiva are incarnations of the Supreme Godhead, and so they are non-different. When the time comes for the material universe to be annihilated, Rudra, the destroyer, appears from Sri Shankarshan. That Rudra is the specific aspect of Lord Shiva who presides over the material mode of ignorance. Everyone who sees Lord Shiva worshipping Sankarshan, one expansion of the supreme worshipper worshipping another, becomes astonished, especially when Lord Shiva dances in ecstasy and offers wonderful prayers. Lord Shiva's worship of Sri Shankarshan can also be seen in the earthly planetary systems, in Ilavrita Varsha, as Sukdev Goswami describes in the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 17, 99. You have the power to go there because you have pure devotion for him. Therefore, go, take shelter of him, and see the real mercy of Krishna. Commentary. Because Narada respects Lord Shiva properly as an expansion, non different from Lord Krishna, and therefore loves Lord Shiva with spontaneous devotion, there is no bar to his entering Shiva Loka. If Narada is to go there and take shelter of Lord Shiva by offering respects and praise, he will be able to see the mercy of Krishna in the ecstasy and opulences of Lord Shiva. Sri Parikshit said, My dear mother, after Narada received these instructions, he departed for Shiva Loka with joyful anticipation, chanting Shiva, Krishna. Commentary. The gist of Brahma's advice to Narada is that he should have faith in Lord Shiva as non different from Lord Sri Krishna. Even though this advice was familiar to Narada, he was inspired to hear it. He welcomed the opportunity Brahma was giving him to show the world the extent of Lord Shiva's glories. He was also curious about what he would find when he arrived at Shivaloka. Thus ends the second chapter of part 1 of Srila Sanatana Goswami's Brihad Bhagavatamrta entitled Divya in Heaven. Hari Bol.
Jai.
It's really amazing like how Lord Brahma refuted him not having the mercy. And I'm thinking like based on our discussion last time that
Yeah.
like they're actually like and the examples he gave, I really like that where he said that
Yeah.
all these demigods who who I have put in different posts, how they actually tormented Krishna, like they
Mm.
created so much disturbance for him. And I was just thinking about him taking the calves, and he shared that in the next verse.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that's interesting. But I was also thinking, in one way, getting the chastisement isn't that mercy too? Because if someone doesn't chastise you, it means that they don't consider, them yours, right? Like I was thinking, like I would chastise my kids if they don't do something because
Mhm.
I love. So,
Mhm.
so in some way, Krishna loves Lord Brahma, and that's why he chastises him.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. At least when in the form of Nrsingadev, he said, "Do not give benedictions like this again." But actually, with in the case of the Brahma Vimohan Leela, Krishna just remained silent. He didn't say anything. So in that sense, it was a kind of like almost like indifference, which is very painful.
And
But
yet
yeah,
he
that's a
was,
good point.
and yet he was more.
1 second, bro. 1 second.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, bro. It's
And
time
I
for
was
me to
saying,
go, but one more thing. Go ahead. No, go ahead, please tell me.
and no, I was just saying that even though he remained indifferent, still Lord Brahma said he was more, like peaceful because he had the sidelong glance,
Mm, yeah,
and he
that's
was
very
okay
sweet.
to actually sit on the throne. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
sweet. Thank you, bro.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.